Hey everybody, Jason here. Welcome to my knot channel. In this video, we're going to talk rapid deployment ridgelines. Okay, so there's quite a few videos out there about rapid deploy ridgelines, and I think they've all missed something. Well, they've missed two things. I'll get to the second point later, near the end of this video. The first thing that I want to say that I think they've missed is that often when you're setting up a ridgeline, it's actually more of a guy line for a lot of tarp shelters that we use, like the plow point, where you throw one end up over a branch. And so with this type of ridgeline, we might not be able to access things like a toggle at one end, but definitely there's a risk of throwing something like this up into a tree. And if you've ever tried it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Typically, you go through this process of trying to throw a rope up over a tree, and at least once, it's gonna get snagged up there with whatever you have. I remember a time when I threw up my ridgeline with just a carabiner as the weight at the end, and the carabiner actually got snagged up on a broken branch, and no matter how much I tried to shake and twist and pull on the thing, it wouldn't come down until eventually the little stub of a branch that was holding it broke off, and the carabiner came flying back at high velocity towards my head. So I think it's important when we create these things that we keep this in mind. We're not only going to use our paracord or our cordage for a horizontal ridgeline. Sometimes it's going to come up on an angle for things like I said, a plow point tarp shelter or a bivy bag tarp shelter, many tarp shelters that only use one guy line to one corner. But also for things like a food hang in bear country, when we go and we throw our line up and hoist up our food at night to keep it safe, to keep us safe. So I thought about that and the quick deploy ridgeline and realized that there was a bit of a flaw in it. We want something that's quick to deploy and accessible at both ends. So what I did was I added a monkey's fist at the other end. Now let's see how this works. So of course the monkey's fist works for throwing an object over the branch of a tree. That's what it was designed for. It works. So with the quick deploy ridgeline, guy line, or length of paracord for that matter, the monkey's fist is a benefit, at least for one thing. So having it at the one end, what that means is with all of my accessories at the other end, I can now just hoist up the other end. So at the other end, the opposite end of the monkey's fist, what I have is a Scott's locked bowline, so it's basically never going to come undone unless I untie it. I have a carabiner. You know, you can use it or not, but having one, since we're doing something for quick deploy, I might as well throw one on there. Now I can easily attach a food bag or even clip onto the end of a tarp. I've got a couple toggles and I've got a couple PRUSIKs, and they're not going to interfere with hoisting the line up now. They're not going to be anywhere near any small branches where they can get snagged up on. And when I lower the rope back down, they're always going to be away from the tree. So how does it work for a horizontal ridgeline though? Okay, so I'm in the forest for a moment so I can use a tree to see how this thing's gonna work for a horizontal ridgeline, and it's spring here in Canada and the mosquitoes are ferocious, so let's make this quick. With the quick deploy ridgeline, typically we have an end where we can wrap around our tree, and then with the carabiner I can clip on, right? So now I have one anchor point already, thanks to the carabiner. If I don't want to use the carabiner, I have my first toggle and my bowline. So I can wrap my bowline around, pass my toggle, and again, I have it anchored. And by not using the carabiner for the anchor point, it's now freed up. I can use it on one of the PRUSIKs to hang some of my gear. And I can still use the other end with the monkey's fist. Just slide one of the PRUSIKs over, wrap your paracord around the tree, pass the monkey's fist through the loop of the PRUSIK, and you basically have a giant button and a loop. Oh, and remember, there are no advanced knots. Just an advanced understanding of them. Keep practicing. My quick deploy paracord. Ridgeline, guy line, maybe the Swiss Army knot of paracord. So the thing is, there's at least one other point that I think everyone's forgetting. Now, these things, quick deploy is great for anyone who doesn't know how to tie knots, or maybe if you're injured in the bush, or, you know, things like that. But they have a problem as well. These quick deploys are like having your parents tie your fishing hook to your fishing line, or always driving automatic and never learning how to drive standard, or always buying takeout food instead of learning how to cook. There is definitely an advantage to having your rig set up. Survival, being prepared, it's all good. But there's a negative, and the negative is we don't practice our knots. So if we rely on something like this, and then we lose it, and someone hands us a length of paracord and asks us to go set up a ridgeline, will we remember the knots that are required? I don't know. Maybe for an experienced bushcrafter or camper who will remember those knots, these are probably great. But for someone who's starting out and tie the knots the first time on something like this, I would say not so good. To learn and remember knots, you need to practice them. And this is a great advantage in the bush, but developing skills requires practice. And this will take away that practice. So that's my take on the quick deploy ridgeline. Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching. Someone might say, those monkey fists are difficult to tie. Well, I do have a link over here. Check it out. They actually are pretty simple to tie. Like everything. A little bit of practice, you can do it every day. Anyway, thanks for watching.